in the book they talk about takers and leavers. Humans have kind of divided into these tribes of types of people. One is the takers, and that there's so many takers right now in the world that, and the leavers we've basically desecrated. I think they refer to like the Native Americans as leavers in a lot of ways, protecting the land, you know, allowing, although they were massacring buffalo and each other and eating each other. I mean, it was pretty
here we go.
Wild.
yeah.
Well,
But the idea is to become
it's
leavers.
Whoa!
Here we go.
Those of you who don't know who Tim Pool is, stop watching now. Preserve your innocence. You can still walk away without learning about the Beanie Goblin.
It's also true.
He's perhaps the world's most dishonest man. Would you say that's fair, Lance?
Ooh. Oh, that's tough. That's tough. We know a lot of dishonest men.
So many Burger So many Burger
let's jump
Kings
into
are going on right now. All right, I'm excited. It's been a while.
I know. Oof. All right, I gotta practice. Get back in the groove, you know.
and we'll talk about Joe Biden being president and this glorious image from Jacobin magazine. Now, I'll tell you what I find particularly fascinating about this is Jacobin is like socialist, like their DSA. Many are there's like communism. They get their name from the French Revolution, and they've
Can I just say
out, and it's Joe Biden.
Amazing. Tim Pool has Twitter in day mode. Like, of course he does.
Yeah,
like,
I know. I've remarked upon that before too.
This image is so clearly a parody. I thought it would be a little more ambiguous.
You were hoping that it was going to be a little more subtle?
Yeah, it's very clearly.
Excellent. 24-minute video, by the way.
As Jesus with the sun behind his head, literally imagery of Jesus.
It's a
And there are
halo, you
people
idiot.
below him like look.
It's definitely a halo. It's the sun literally right behind him, emanating light, the light of God, clearly.
Oh,
To get rid of Christianity.
Oh,
And,
this
like,
is. Oh,
fearing
sorry.
and
I don't know why I
worshiping
jumped
him.
ahead. It's glitchy. That's Moonlord. He replaced Weedlord with Moonlord. And it's Moonlord because he's got a lot of videos. Moonlord is one of those people who's got his own kind of. I've done a deep dive of his personal channel. He has his own YouTube channels, and they are out there. They're out there for Tim Pool levels, where he's got videos. He screams in tears at the camera to mine the moon, but he's genuinely serious. He's like, "You have to mine the moon to save us all. What is wrong with you?" That's Tim Pool's new co-host. Yeah, so.
Oh, I mean, that does sound like something Weedlord would say.
There's angels filming and interviewing him. What are these people thinking?
This smacks of the French Revolution. This was what's his name?
Smacks of the French Revolution.
Jacobins.
Also,
You think the magazine that is named after French revolutionaries is going to shrink that comparison?
but that I don't know if this religious. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know if the religious iconography had anything to do with the French Revolution.
Correct me if I'm here, but he actually became. They wanted to get rid of Christianity, and he portrayed himself as a deity and came down from the mountain. And he wanted to create a new religion around himself. And this is like I don't know if they don't know that, or if this is a sick joke, or if they really are like
Maybe
zealous.
that's why they're doing it.
I mean, politicians are not supposed to be worshipped. They are servants. They're supposed to be serving the people. And I don't care if it's Joe Biden, QAnon, Donald Trump. Stop with this obsession with putting people above yourself and putting...
Sorry, this comic he has behind him, that's made by a literal neo-Nazi.
Yeah, it's the same one who did the dancing on the graves, the doctors, the most vile thing that Tim Pool's ever done. He's got his comics framed all around the studio.
Like that guy's like Stone Toss level reactionary. He's not like just had to say that.
Yep.
all the responsibilities and all your failures and all your hopes into one person and take some gosh darn personal responsibility for yourself, you mother.
We're supposed to be saying...
Okay, so...
You absolute mother. Sorry, my dad walked in the next room. I couldn't swear.
I should also add, someone saying in chat that person that's speaking right now is the artist. I don't know what he looks like because I don't know who that person speaking is.
Really?
Yeah, I've never encountered it, but yeah.
Holy shit!
We're supposed to be doing that.
exactly like I thought he'd be.
Fair enough. Well, I'm not gonna confirm that yet. That's not. If there's fact checkers, if someone is watching us right now and hate watching us, if it's super meta, if someone's hate watching us, hate watching Tim Pool, don't. That's not canon. All right. I don't know if that's true or not.
We're supposed to be sitting in chairs going, Joseph, come here, clean up this mess. We've hired you to take care of these problems. Instead, they create the problems and they do whatever they want. They enrich themselves. They're not solving the problems. I think we were talking about this before. The difference between a statesman and what we currently have with crony politicians. Someone who actually gets who gets elected and says, I'm going to go in and...
That's not what a civil servant is.
No.
The civil servant doesn't refer to literally being able to order them around and get them to like feed you grapes while you lie back in a shea lounge. Like it's...
Excuse me, sir.
Like, yeah, I don't recall when Trump was in office, Tim making these demands of Trump. Like,
That's true.
focus on solving these problems for you. And then what, we have like one or two who actually do. But when you have a media ecosystem that is acting like Joe Biden is literally Jesus, then I don't see how we actually solve problems. Just to clarify my point, Joe...
The thing that astonishes me, that I think we hold these truths to be self-evident with this whole thing, is like, do they not know Jacobin is a left-wing publication? That's like, of all the papers to choose, like,
not only that, but like this is a joke, and they're getting this worked up about it. But you look at all those like McNaughton paintings of Trump like standing next to Jesus, and like God putting his hand into Trump's hand so that he can sign bills, and like people literally calling Trump the God Emperor, and like this silly cartoon where there's like they're making reporters into angels. Like this is where you draw the line.
Oh, by the way, one of my mods is saying that's Luke Radowski. He runs We Are Change. He was at Occupy and early on the YouTube 9/11 Truther and QAnon movements. Ah, scary.
So Biden asks, is he this dumb or is he grifting? And the answer, yes.
To both.
Could do.
Yes.
Well, you know what? You know what's odd? People who have met Tim Pool say that he's not actually a grifter. That like he believes this stuff. He's just like disillusioned or something.
I kind of get that vibe from him sometimes, but it's like a willful belief.
Yeah, of course.
Really horrible things, and they don't care. But it's funny because they say the same thing about Donald Trump.
I'm kind of at a place where it's like, just let them have their fun. But I don't know. What were you going to say, Jack?
I was just going to say, how are you going to criticize Jesus?
Yeah, come on.
This dude who's on camera right now isn't a Proud Boy, despite it looks, I mean, he could be outside of it, but he runs his own organization about a fraternity of men who, I kid you not, I did a deep dive of his tenets and rules. He wants to improve grip strength because he says that men have lost grip strength over the years and it's making them too feminine. So that's part of their tenets, is to improve.
Of the goals that I have heard far-right extremists express over the past few years, that's one of the ones I have less of a problem with.
I agree.
I wouldn't mind having stronger hands. Yeah.
It's relatively benign in terms of their demands. It's like, we demand more grip strength. I'm like, okay, I mean, maybe I'll work on it a bit in my spare time.
Sure, yeah. Look, I'll tell you what. You stop trying to take over the government, and I promise I'll squeeze the little thing.
Yeah.
Many times a day.
I'll squeeze some inches.
This guy doesn't have the grip strength to hold on to a fucking clipper for his beard, and here he's lecturing us about grip strength. Like,
Reminded, and I'm about ready to do this thing I hate where I say, what about? I'm also reminded about this summer when they were tearing down statues of Abraham Lincoln, where Lincoln's standing there and he's got his hand out and there's a slave on his knees breaking out of his chains and standing up. A joy like raptures face up to Abraham Lincoln. this cover with Biden as Jesus hovering above a black family in masks, looking up at him like he's God. That is no
It's
different.
a joke.
Well, it is. I mean,
Yeah, by a left-wing magazine.
Wow. Really making me appreciate the satire. Yeah.
I mean, at first I was like, well, this is a little tongue in cheek, little, little on the nose for Jacobin. And now I'm like, oh, wait.
It's also like they can't help but show their own asses about how if this was the other way around, they'd be in favor of it. Because they're
of
like,
course.
well, they got mad at the time we compared a president to a god in a good way.
Yeah.
And now they're
Yeah.
comparing the president we don't like to a god, and that's not right.
Yeah, the amount of like Trump is a muscular Sylvester Stallone circa 1994 character, like art and images that were published and that they would use like unironically. I'm not saying specifically Tim Pool, just people on the right all the time.
I
The
guess
amount of
technically.
like Ben Garrisons that unironically portrayed Trump as a superhero
Yes.
with like a muscular
Yes.
physique.
That got so bad. I believed the monstrous dong ones that turned out to be parodies afterwards. But when like I started seeing those, I was like, yeah, of course Ben Garrison is drawing Trump with this monster dong, and there's Karl Marx with an even bigger dong. I'm like, that's yeah, and then I was like, no.
I thought you meant.
Would you-
I thought you meant by what you just said that you saw so many Ben Garrison cartoons that you started to believe Trump had a monster dong. Like you started thinking, well, I guess that's one thing he does have is a big, huge dong.
Yeah, I mean, Ben Garrison has taught me nothing else. Both can be true. Por qué no los dos?
The statue of Abraham Lincoln was paid for and built, like organized by former slaves who were saying thank you to Lincoln. Now the leftists today got that statue removed. They actually removed it. It was in Boston. I can't believe it. They took it down.
There's one in D.C. they're trying to take down too. Same statue.
They're taking it down because they're like, it shows that black people were at one point slaves. And so they want to erase that. They don't want that idea
I
to
don't think
exist.
that's why.
So they got rid of it. It worked.
I don't think that's why, dude.
I was
I
gonna
don't
say,
think that's right.
but sure. Let Tim have this one.
This is people worshiping Jesus Biden.
Okay, I'm sorry. What's the source on that? Or is that just straight from the beanie? Like, did he read that in the Daily Mail? Like, do you feel secure enough in just saying that without any factual backing to say that out loud? Like, that's the reason. This is the reason they're worried
So
about this. Like,
I missed him so much. Like,
yeah, that one's unreal. Had it not been for the statue, they would have never known that the black people were enslaved.
it's racist. That's what the left, the SJW left. They're all about stopping people from remembering that slavery happened.
Learning about slavery.
Yeah, they don't want anyone to learn about it or feel bad about it or whatever.
It's too bad you don't have your Tim Pool bingo anymore, because I think we just hit probably like 3 of them, right?
Oh, man.
Who hasn't done anything? What did he do?
He slammed
defeated the
Tara
devil.
Reid up against the wall.
Yeah, he
and
defeated the devil. There you go.
He hasn't done anything.
He may have.
That's the point. That's the whole point. So mad about that. He hasn't done anything.
Man. It's like we laugh and then you remember 47,000 people care what this man
Right now.
thinks.
Yeah, 47,000 are
Right
watching
now.
it live. I know. Right now. Yeah, I know. That it pulls you out of it. It pulls you away.
Performed what would they call it? Sexual aggressive acts against Tara Reid in
And children
in
and
his workplace.
Oh yeah,
you know, it's
Funny
really
stuff.
hard because I
Yeah,
feel like
hilarious.
the things
Stuff.
they threw at
Cutting
Trump
edge.
were preemptive defensive techniques. Like you better accuse Trump of it before it comes at us.
Yes.
Because the Democrats are swimming in the corruption and the swamp. And so they're like, let's make sure everybody thinks Trump is corrupt for like the emoluments clause, for instance.
Man,
Joe Biden sending his kid to China on Air Force Two.
That's
a bit different.
it's like we live in the Empire from Star Wars, and it's like people just want to just chill out and just accept it. You just want to be a citizen, man. You just
I completely agree with Moonlord. I don't know how often this will happen,
it's
but
just like Star Wars.
yeah.
Yeah.
It's Star Wars, you know.
No.
We're Star Wars. Yeah.
Yeah,
And we live in
there's
the
no historical
Empire.
precedent for it.
Well, I'm so curious. Does he think he's just like a stormtrooper in the middle of all this, or is he going to be like?
No, I think he thinks he's part of the rebellion.
Oh,
He
okay,
thinks he's like a Jedi.
Right. Because he said, well, is he a Jedi infiltrator? He's like, we live in the Empire. So that's why I'm curious about this now. I'm like, well, that's why I'm saying he's not actually wrong, I guess. The US is the Empire. You got that much.
Yeah, but he's right for the wrong reasons.
Yes, as is usually the case.
Just want to reap the bits of the empire controlling all these planets and countries or whatever.
Well, so this is the thing I was mentioning
Had
this
to pull
earlier.
back-
I
pull
tweeted,
back down.
I often wondered what pro-empire propaganda would look like in the Star Wars universe. And it's because we have the entirety of DC locked down by the National Guard, many of whom have no idea why they're there, in order to...
Okay, so now, because Joe Biden's taken over, it's the Empire. Like, now America is the evil empire. But before it was the rebellion, but now we switched over. That's
So this is how democracy dies.
yes.
To thunderous applause.
Everybody laugh.
Boy, it really can't be said enough that like Tim Pool's entire worldview comes from pop culture.
Oh,
and
yeah.
and like pop culture from the last like 20 years. Like
Yeah.
it's all like Marvel movies and Star Wars and
American
shit.
pop
Like, it's-
culture from the last 20 years. American mainstream pop culture from the last 20 years. Well, actually, sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Pop culture, by definition, is going to be mainstream. I'm Tim Pooling already.
And you've got to show your papers proving you have legitimate business. Why? Because the storming of the Capitol, I don't think we need 25,000 troops locking down the entire Capitol.
No, as Adam Townsend said on Twitter, it's about imprinting history on people's brains. So that in 20, 30, 40, 50 years, they just look back and they're like, oh, things must have been terrible. They had to have 25,000 troops in the Capitol. No one will remember the nuance. I've lived in D.C. for 30 years.
Fucking
Oh, the nuance. Yeah, the nuance, of course.
I forgot the nuance.
Yeah. All the nuance. Yeah, no one's going to remember all the good things.
Yeah, what about the
good?
good things QAnon pulled off in their time? Also, like, I think they're going to remember that there's 400,000 dead Americans and that it was a pandemic and that, yeah, it was a shitty time. Yeah.
More Americans died of COVID-19 so far than of World War II.
Yeah.
Like,
that's probably what they'll remember.
she's fucked up, dog.
Yeah, incredibly.
I've been through a number of inaugurations. I have never once heard of incoming traffic shut down over the bridges coming into the city. The area that they blocked off is like
different this time.
It's baffling to me. They just had a whole bunch of like little flags representing people. I don't know why they would do that. What's the reasoning behind any of this, you know?
Shutting down the bridge, it's like, they're acting like a bunch of people tried to kill him a couple of weeks ago. It's crazy.
It's almost like there was an attack, a domestic attack, if you will, on the Capitol building. The very same one that they're going to have to do this whole ceremony on. So, yeah.
They blocked off from Virginia into DC.
It's like 20 times the size of anything that had ever been blocked off before. It was just mind-boggling. Troops marching. Troops marching down the streets.
Yeah, there's a famous meme
what
going
troops
around
do.
right now with all the soldiers and the motorcade going through, and it says, "We defeated fascism."
Yeah.
And again, those images are extremely visceral for a reason, and we have to ask ourselves, why did we do this? Why did we lock down the capital of the United States
Yeah, I'm
under
sorry.
a military
I just have to
occupation
point something
when
out.
there was
It's ridiculous for them to complain about Joe Biden like being portrayed as Jesus in this cartoon when he has Joe Biden drawn as a child-eating monster, like framed and hanging behind him. Like his comic literally portrays Joe Biden as a demon from hell eating children. Like, how is that any different?
You don't understand the nuance of the situation. Yeah.
The nuance.
I'm hearing a lot of reports of no protesters at all being seen anywhere near even the vicinity of Washington, D.C. protesting Biden.
It was the opposite. Every single like Trump forum was like, don't go to DC. People were saying like, don't do it, don't go.
But on the mainstream media, we heard nonstop 24/7 breaking news coverage of threat assessments. It's going to get bad. It's going to get ugly. It's going to get bloody and dangerous. And what happened?
It was such a winning move, though, because now all they can say is like, there was a threat. We responded to the threat and we prevented it.
No, that was the response. Like, the troops were the response to the threat that happened during the insurrection. It's there's not another like.
It's just surreal to hear them talk about this, because it's like there's all of these troops and they're like, and there's no protesters. You think those two things might be connected, dude? Like,
Yeah.
like
And nothing happened. Nothing. Can you believe?
Oh yeah, because we put the
a
troops
win.
there.
Yeah, it's a winning move no matter what.
And think about the media narrative right now and how, say, Wikipedia works. They just take whatever op-ed, and I'm not serious. I'm serious. they take op-eds, and someone will say there was an insurrection. It's all about framing. So I'm sure if you now look at what the historians are writing, they're going to say there was an attempted insurrection by white supremacist terrorists, and then in 50 years,
These
that's what they
fucking
want
historians.
everyone. You know, history
Yeah.
is written by the victors. They
Yeah.
want everyone to look back at this day and say,
Let me
Trump's
tell
army
you,
of white
this
supremacists
is
stormed the Capitol,
unbelievable.
planning to kill and kidnap.
they're just gonna
members.
write
And so the
everything that happened. You're just gonna write down what happened
What,
on
you mean
January 6th, and
the
people
events?
are gonna read about it, and like, and they're gonna come away thinking the truth and like about the events of things that actually happened. It's fucking like what? It's like 1984.
I was going to say very Orwellian. This whole thing is Orwellian from the start.
troops were deployed to protect the city to prevent another insurrection. It was a trying time.
And they did it, and they successfully were able to fight it back. And it's only going to get worse from here as we're seeing very extreme language from individuals like John Brennan, the former CIA director that literally lied under oath about so many different things, whether spying or the Steele dossier. He came out today on the mainstream media and he said the Biden intelligence organization
He was
Wait.
on the mainstream
moving
media.
quote,
Whoa.
like fashion to
The director of the CIA.
uncover the Trump insurgency and the people who harbored it, including religious extremists, authoritarians, fascists, bigots, nativists,
Bigots.
and even libertarians.
This was
Yeah.
libertarians.
He said,
Yeah.
yes. John Brennan said that Biden's intelligence
Yeah.
agencies are moving in laser-like
Yeah.
fashion against libertarians.
That's a political
Yes.
party.
Yes. That's why I tweeted the video out because I couldn't believe it because I saw people talking about it. But
Biggest.
we have the former CIA director, you know, the epitome of the deep state, talking about Biden going after libertarians now because of everything that
The,
happened.
the nativist thing was particularly interesting to
Yes.
me. They're making it now that if you oppose immigration in any way, you're an ist of some sort. And they're making nativist like racist. So I was
Yes.
listening. I
Yeah, I was gonna-
Yes,
they,
you are. Yes.
they.
The right is always mad when there are words to describe their beliefs.
Yes.
It's like,
Yes. Yeah.
like that's just, it's not a moral judgment to call someone a nativist. They just are that thing. The fact that like everybody hears that and gets mad at them is because the idea sucks shit.
Yep.
Like,
Yep.
just have
Yeah.
better ideas and people won't give you mean names.
Stop giving us descriptions of the things we are, please.
didn't do a 1 p.m. segment today because I had to watch the inauguration. And it was happening at the same time I normally, produce and record. And I remember when Joe Biden mentioned, rejecting the hate of nativists. And I was like, it's a really interesting choice of words. Now people who are like, you're native to the country, you get preferential treatment is wrong. It's an ist. And they're going to use
Yes.
it like racist. I would, so already.
So wait.
No, that is wrong. You can't just,
So they're gonna say,
so yeah.
"What's next?" Yeah, it is. It's wrong. So now,
Like he could at least, like he started with like if you're opposed to immigration in any way, so that
Yeah.
he could have meant by that like, oh, if you're opposed to like dissolving borders or
Yeah, of
just
course.
allowing anyone in, allowing people in with horrible criminal records, still a shitty opinion, but like that doesn't make you a nativist, right?
Yeah.
But to say specifically that it's wrong to treat people differently if they are natural citizens than if they're immigrants. Oh, that makes you a nativist now. All of a sudden, that makes you a nativist.
yeah, it's pretty uncanny. It's a uniquely Tim Pool scenario.
Wild.
Well, it's like what if someone was like, I hate gay people, but for some reason now they call you a homophobe. Like what? You're a homophobe if that's your thing? Like I have a phobia against homosexuals. I don't understand why they keep using this word to describe me.
Like if I was scared of spiders, they wouldn't call me an arachnophobe.
No, that wouldn't make sense.
No.
Native to the means American.
Yes.
Right, right. So if you're an American,
Yeah.
Yes.
and believe that that's important and a good thing.
It's I just wanted to get your opinion on that sentence as an indigenous person. Do you feel that the word native
Well,
means American?
I was deeply wondering if they're gonna try that, if they're gonna go down that road. I was like, are they gonna use native as in like, oh, this is the root of the word, so clearly, this can't possibly be the case. Yeah.
Well, let's see. I look forward to finding out if the concept of indigenous people even comes up in this discussion of nativism.
YouTube already made the rule a year ago that if you disparage non-citizens for being not citizens, you will be banned.
But most importantly, he went on and he said all of these things, nativists, libertarians, are a threat to democracy and are insidious. Those are his exact inflammatory words that are extremely reckless, extremely dangerous, but also, most importantly, extremely untrue. When we talk about libertarians, what are they guilty of? Not liking the government, being unsuccessful in politics, having
Being pedophiles.
Yeah. That's pretty much it. Pedophilia. Oh,
buddy candidates,
I gotta
having
pause it
some
for 2
ideas
seconds.
about individual.
Just to correct people in chat, because everyone's asking, Lance, your First Nations? Technically, no. My mom's Métis, and so First Nations, you wouldn't describe that as that. You usually use the term Indigenous because that's a big branch to include all of the different kinds of Indigenous people in Canada. But I'm not First Nations. No, that's separate. That's different.
Individual sovereignty and
something
liberty.
today.
What are they guilty of? What do they do?
How do you lump a libertarian in with a fascist?
Yeah. When everything, again, this is another thing we need to realize here.
So I'm just realizing this now. They think fascism is like a political party. They not an ideology. They don't think there's such a thing as a libertarian fascist. They're like, well, there's fascists and there's libertarians, and clearly, if I'm a libertarian, I couldn't be a fascist as well, right? They're conflicting ideologies. Yeah.
I mean, they should be.
Yeah.
I mean, if libertarians actually believe what they claim to believe, they should be conflicting ideologies.
Yeah, of
it's
course.
just, in practice, the type of people who claim to be libertarians happen to hang out with fascists a lot because American libertarianism is like founded on opposition to civil rights. So it's like it's white supremacy is like baked into it. Like it's like the amount of people at that fucking fascist coup with "Don't tread on me" flags.
Oh my god!
Like,
so many snakes. So many snakes.
This whole Democratic Party was built as a large hammer hitting nails. So if you're a hammer, everything's going to start looking like nails for you because that's your single duty. That's the main kind of apparatus. That's how the Democratic Party gained power in 2020. Let's be honest here. They took down a lot of people, and that's how they were able to step on them and get a step above everybody else.
Treaded.
And they know that works.
What does that
They know
mean?
that this is going to
I think
be
he's talking about
implemented
treading
even more
upon.
before this, and it doesn't take a genius to see that the writing is on the wall, that we're going to see an expansion of this moving forward.
Yeah, I think it's important to point out, too, that this process started in the 60s when the Democrats made a very conscious decision to make themselves the party of everybody but the white guy and to go against the white guys in the late 60s, 1960s. If you want to learn more about this, check out Matt Stoll's.
Democrats famously hating white people.
but he's talking about the Southern strategy. He's saying that Democrats choosing to support civil rights in opposition to Republicans deciding to campaign specifically against civil rights is them deciding to go for everyone but white people. He is literally, oh God. Like,
But I ask you, Matt, how
they just say it. They just say it. Like, you don't even have to read it. They just go on. They go live and they just say it out loud to people. Like
to 47,000 people live right now. So, Yeah, there's not going to be any pushback, by the way. There's not going to be Tim
No,
being
of course
like,
not.
yeah, it's like, well, I don't know, that's strange. You would speak of the Southern strategy in that way. That's less of a dog whistle, more of just like you being racist on air. But no, none of that's going to happen. That's just like,
I gotta tell you, I keep hearing from these people that it's so hard to be white. I don't. It's been pretty fine. It's been fine for me.
yeah, I mean,
I don't know what their problem is. I'm not running into any issues. Like
I'm white. I'm like as white passing as it gets. It's been completely trouble free. It's yeah. I guess that's what they say, right?
yeah.
Goliath. There's a whole big detailed section about the deliberate course of action that the Democrats took. And so the nail is white dudes, and the hammer is what now? The state and all the non-white dudes behind them.
The state,
And
the
that's-
CIA,
and-
the FBI.
And
Go
that's
ahead.
why when Alex was here, he said, "I am a gorilla." But love yourself.
We can all
Well,
agree
because
with that.
the idea of that book.
My video got permanently taken down for like talking about the insurrection, and they get to do this.
Right.
Like that just crossed my mind.
Yeah,
they get to
but-
like this is okay. This is totally fine.
They get to say that. They get to say that non-white people are weapons of the state, and
Yeah.
then talk about their good friend Alex Jones, and that's cool.
This is also really close to like white genocide stuff, you know, as in like the Democrats now the enemy of white people, and they're coming like, and they're an apparatus
Yeah.
of the state, and they're the hammer coming towards the white race. Like, this, am I reading too
That's
much
full on
into
Turner
this?
Diary shit. That's the plot of the Turner Diaries.
Right,
it's
like I was like, this sounds like a video I watched maybe on a book I would never read.
Like Beardo just said that the hammer in this instance is non-white people. That's like and the nails are white people. Like you can't get much more explicit than that. I'm aghast. Like
I'm glad it's just not me. Like,
yeah, I like Tim Pool. I know that he has like some sort of ear disorder where he can't hear dog whistles. But you'd think if someone just stood in front of him and said, like, "Hey, bud, I'm a big racist over here. Look at me, I'm a big racist. By the way, clip that. Have fun with that one."
yeah.
He would at least go like, "Oh well, that doesn't sound great." Like, you know.
Yeah. Your response wouldn't be to just be like, okay, well, yeah, you just said they're an enemy of the white race. Segue.
Book was discussion we were having was that the establishment wants you to live in the wilderness. They want you to live, like we used to hundreds of years ago, and that was the general concept. To be completely honest, I think people would do well to get
And
out into
are
the
they
wild.
Anprims?
Yeah, that sounds like a
Right.
good prescription.
But the idea was like destroying modern civilization and technology because we're destructive. It reminds me of The Matrix when Agent Smith is like, humans
Is this
are not
happening in The
animals. They're
Matrix?
viruses. I'm not going to do
Humans are the virus. No, he's doing an eco-fash right now. I know the quote he's mining. It's an eco-fash quote, and we are the cure.
Yeah, but
With pop
he's
culture.
saying
and
my enemies are doing this, but also I think it's a good idea. Like, they're trying to make us all live out in the woods. Now we should.
yeah, which
They're
sounds like
trying to make us
sounds,
do it.
it sounds like the Anprim dream. Come on.
They're just like the bad guys in the science fiction movie.
Yeah, the other one I know.
But that's basically what he says, because animals, he says, build a natural equilibrium with their environment, whereas humans just reproduce, move around, and destroy, and like a virus. That's the same idea from my understanding from that book. And so the idea is to get humans back into stability with the natural environment.
You're not
And then that requires
meant to
the average person
agree
to
with
give up
Agent
this
Smith
way
in that scene.
He's not the protagonist. The eco-fash.
the guy who has one of our heroes tied up and is torturing him.
Yeah,
there's
in that
some
scene.
subtle clues later in the movie that he's actually the bad guy. If you can believe it.
Oh.
I know it's against type for Hugo Weaving to play the bad guy. But
Yeah, first time I've seen that.
So now I think what we're seeing, especially with the Great Reset, especially with the
Great
Democratic
Reset, correct.
politicians who have defied their own lockdown orders.
Orwellian.
The idea is, if the rich people are to maintain their lifestyles, everyone else has to sacrifice but them. So that's what they want. That's where we're headed.
Well, yes.
All the climate change stuff.
Yeah,
Whatever.
that's kind of how the whole House of Cards works. That's it. You did
Oh,
it.
jeez.
You figured it out.
Only there were some people trying to tell you about this for a while.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I read Ishmael. Am I supposed to talk about that right now? It was like 12 years. Ishmael
Please. Ishmael's a great book. I read Ishmael too. Come on, Moonlord. Bring us home.
is the book where the gorilla comes from. He's the gorilla is called
I
Ishmael
see.
that Alex
Our mascot, yes.
mentioned. And in the book, they talk about takers and leavers. Humans have kind of divided into these tribes of types of people. One is the takers. And that there's so many takers right now in the world that in the leavers we've basically desecrated. I think they refer to like the Native Americans as leavers in a lot of ways, protecting the land, allowing, although they were massacring buffalo and each other and eating each other. I mean, it was pretty
Here we go.
Wild.
Yeah.
but the idea is to become
It's
leavers.
Whoa!
Here we go.
I gotta tell you, for a minute there, I was like, I'm surprised that he would say that they're leavers and talk about how they protect the land,
I
and
knew
then
it.
just whoosh, way in the other
I
direction.
knew it was coming.
Wow.
I knew it was coming. I knew it. I was like, I don't know if you could see it. I actually my head hit the microphone because it's like, oh fuck no, Moonlord is gonna drop some obscenely racist shit right now. I know it's gonna happen. And by the way,
Wow.
as someone who has read Ishmael, the ultimate takeaway from it is how other animals on Earth they form this homeostasis with the living environment around that, and that how humans should learn to live that way. That's the lesson at the end of the novel, is that we should try to find an equilibrium, a balance, if you will, with the natural world, because we haven't. We're consuming it. Is the point of it. Not whatever was just uttered.
No, I'm pretty sure it's about how native people were cannibals. I'm pretty sure. I haven't read it, but yeah.
Ate the buffalo
Yeah, when
and
I think
themselves.
of when I think of groups that really slaughtered buffalo unnecessarily, it's definitely indigenous.
Oh, no
did that
question.
one.
No question.
Yeah,
And
that
not
was the thing that
taking-
white people did as a deliberate act of genocide
Yeah,
to cut off the food supply. Yeah.
Sometimes for sport, not for food, sustenance, or clothing, just because there were so
You can
many
look
at the
history
time.
textbooks of the huge piles of dead buffalo that they would go out and they would kill all of them so that the Native Americans had nowhere to hunt.
Exactly.
It's
Yep.
ways. And that, I think, has a lot of merit.
I get
That's
it.
the difference between being a producer and a consumer.
Wait, that has a lot of merit,
yeah.
Moonlord. The
Leave
last thing you
world a
said,
better place
no.
than how you found it.
The problem
Oh,
is,
okay.
I don't trust the people who are pushing this kind of garbage. And now we're getting it tenfold with Joe Biden. He's going in, Paris Climate Agreement, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, so
Critical race theory.
even if you do think it's a good idea, you
None of the
really
executive
look
orders were
at
about critical
people
race
who are
theory.
Pushing it. People like,
I'm astounded he still pushes that, considering he was proven time and time again that he doesn't even understand what critical race theory is. That is ridiculous. And no,
none of them do.
yeah,
None of them do.
yeah, fair.
The amount of people that I've gotten messages from saying just giving me the wildest ideas about what critical race theory is, because they made some video where I went over a very 101 Wikipedia level understanding of it, right? Here's the basic of what it is. I don't understand why everybody's mad about this. And the amount of wild nonsense people have sent me saying what critical race theory is. Because they think it's this white people are evil
anti-white.
and,
They think it's so anti-white. That's it. It's you're taught to learn about how white people are evil and all this stuff. It's that has nothing to do with critical race theory. Don't listen to
think
Charlie
it is-
Kirk about this.
they think it's a classroom where everything they think about people of color, someone teaches to people in the class is actually true about white people.
Yes,
That's-
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Yep, that's it.
Bill Gates or whoever, George Soros,
Bill Gates
bad
pushing it
idea.
while at the same time acquiring every last piece of available
Yeah,
farmland
exactly.
in America.
Okay.
And now
Basically.
he's the largest farm owner in all of the
Right.
United States.
I doubt that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that
Mr.
true?
Monsanto, the man who bankrolled pretty much Monsanto with all the stock purchases, is now in control of the United States food supply in many ways.
But now, if you had all that
Well,
money and you knew that we were going to
I
print
think
up
there's
trillions of dollars,
only one thing to be
what
done
is-
about that. Only one thing we can do about that, obviously, we got to expropriate the means of production and give them back to the workers. I mean, I agree with that. It's a big problem that Bill Gates has all this farmland. Why don't we go take it back? Come on, comrades. Like, yeah.
Nice. Nicely done.
Why do you think that was allowed to happen?
Nice. Hannah calculated on her stream, Bill owns 0.0001% of the farmland in the US. Whoa, I didn't know that about Bill Gates. Why is he doing this? You just did a documentary on Bill Gates. Sorry, Bill Gates. Did that come up at all, or?
No, I didn't. I didn't know that.
Oh, wild.
My thing on Bill Gates was, I don't know if you're talking to me, but my thing was, about philanthropy and the kind of ruse of Bill Gates's philanthropy.
Oh, and you've also done it. I was thinking of the debunk one on vaccines.
Oh, on the vaccines.
But I was just wondering when you were, well, if you were, my point being, if you were like researching Bill for the vaccine conspiracy theory, was there anything about this like farm conspiracy theory that he's trying to just like buy up all? No. Oh, okay.
There wasn't.
Oh, okay.
I only really started hearing that like last week.
Yeah. Weird.
What is the best thing to buy in that case?
Beachfront property, because of course there's climate change and we have to worry about the rising ocean tides, as Bill Gates literally bought oceanfront property. So that tells you everything that we need to know about
but raw
like
land
that.
and farmland over time have tracked money supply pretty closely.
Yeah.
So that's a good place to be. He must think that there's a lot of inflation coming.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I wonder why.
Drink.
So here was the
Drink.
here was the joke I mentioned. So we have this from on Twitter from Balages. Is that how you pronounce his name?
Oh, Balaji.
It says he tweeted up and to the right, and it's a picture of the M1 money stock skyrocketing.
Yep.
And y'all know how's that meme money printer go burr.
Yep.
You ready?
It's going burr for
You ready?
sure.
No, the money printer is going. Ah! I moved away from the mic because I don't want to blow
thank
anyone's
you.
eardrums out.
I was not expecting that.
Yeah, it's just
That's the sound I'm making.
it's just you look at the money M1 money stock, and it's just I'm imagining a man screaming at the top of his lungs.
Yeah.
Whoa, Jack.
So,
freaking out.
yep. Yeah. I don't know though. People don't have money, right? So some people have mentioned maybe there wasn't enough money in circulation.
I just love it so
And
much.
one of the issues
I don't know though.
is
People don't
if
have money.
People aren't working at all because of the COVID lockdown, and they're desperate for any amount of money. Then we might actually see deflation. The wealth will concentrate into the hands of the ultra rich, the politicians, the elites, and they'll hoard it. Then by holding onto it and strangling out the working people, a normal person who's like, I need $15 an hour, might finally just break and say, give me 10. I don't care. I have nothing. And then you can get the same amount of labor from that person for cheaper because there's no money for them.
Not if the Democrats get their way. You won't be allowed to hire anybody for less than.
It's like it's someone flirting with so
Which
many.
is it?
Yeah, I know.
Which is it? Are they bad because they're going to make minimum wage too high, or are they bad because they're going to not make like?
It'll just get to a breaking point, you see, and then they'll demand lower wages. They'll beg them, please pay me less. I need this job. But like they flirt with the idea of like, you know, the labor theory of value, the coercion under capitalism, the exploitation of workers and labor thatself, right? And they always reach the wrong conclusions. Every time I hear this, and like, or they'll be like, oh yes, and this all benefits, you know, a very small percentage of people, the elites and the cabal, and then you're like, oh God, why? You know, or Bill Gates or George Soros. It's just like, it's those two. There's a lot of evil billionaires. There's so many to choose from. There's hundreds in the U.S. alone. You know, you don't always have to pick the two, the favorites.
Well, do they ever ask themselves, you know, as supporters of the status quo, like why it is that evil people with money manage to be in control of everything all of the time?
Yeah.
Like if you were the one that makes the case that like people with money should be allowed to do whatever they want with it, and that we should have this system that allows people to control things privately, if you believe that, and you simultaneously believe that the world is ruined because rich, evil people keep fucking everything up, like how do you hold those two things?
Yeah.
You know?
What keeps causing it?
It's in $15 an hour all across the country.
No. But think about it. What they're doing with money printing, and that at the same time, is tricking people into thinking they're getting more when they're not.
Correct.
Yeah.
So with the mass printing of money, the people then saying, "Oh, I'll get $15 an hour," they're going to have the same buying power. Their lives will not improve.
Motherfucker, you just said there would be deflation. They would get more buying power, you fucking idiot.
But what I see happening here, but you don't understand. Thought Slams, they're gonna reject the $15 and then they'll say the $10 right afterwards. That's what deflation means, right? It's whatever you want it to be at any given time.
It's making me dizzy, dude. Like just from sentence to sentence, it is just like no thoughts are connected. It's like total free association. It's wild.
Yeah, 47,000 people right now watching this.
If they're valued at $10 or $12 an hour in terms of their utility.
Well, this is the thing. The job question is really, really big because when we have the lower skilled jobs being taken by immigrants, when we have the higher paid jobs being taken because of these visas that are going to be reintroduced, what jobs are left? None of them.
Wait,
and you would think,
these
failing
visas that are
wages.
gonna be, so those are immigrants as well? Is it just immigrants are taking all the jobs? They come here, the high paid, high skilled laborers, and their visas, and then the lower ones are taken by immigrants? Like, Jesus.
But if that's true, and it's not, but if it were true,
and it's not,
and I have to be clear that it is not.
Yeah.
Why do you think people are like immigrants just better workers, or are they cheaper to hire? And if so, maybe some kind of law where you had to pay undocumented immigrants the same amount as legal citizens might fix that problem, dude.
Yep.
Like, maybe it's your own policies that lead to this shit.
or deflation.
Yeah,
Is
or the
huge
deflation.
sheer cost and the collapsing economy would be something worth noting and talking about. But sadly, this is something that hasn't been mentioned and talked about. I mean, we're talking about it, but not many people are, which is even more scary.
You know what's really crazy about this too? Take a look. We'll pull
This
up the money
motherfucker's been
stock.
president for
The
2
real
days.
expansion of the money stock.
And they're already like, he's blowing up the economy.
Well, they made this one on the day of the inauguration, so technically he had been president for a couple hours while this was being
For
recorded.
a couple hours.
Yeah.
Yeah. Weird how the economy went from booming to terrible in that time. Yeah.
But the stocks went way up, but also, at the same time. Like I wish
you
someone
ever
could
seen
explain
that,
to him well what this means. It means like the stock market is just representative of rich people's investor confidence. That's it. So when they see something they like or they feel safe with, they're like, okay, cool. Which is why when the Federal Reserve injects the stock market with trillions of dollars, the stock markets continue to go up despite the fact that we're in the middle of a recession, because they're like investor confidence. It's just for the rich people. That's the only ones who get to play with the majority of stocks. That's it.
Also, have you ever seen the political cartoon? It's like Obama sitting at his desk and he's reading a bunch of documents, and it says what the president does, and then the next panel is him with these two big switches, and it says what people think the president does, and the switches say stock market and gas prices, and he's just going like.
That is how it works, isn't it? I mean, it seems like it. 90% of the New York Stock Exchange is owned by 10,000 people. Wow.
Supply. It started after the financial crisis.
Yeah.
So when you look at this major sharp uptick, look at the angle from 2008 until 2020 before the major spike, and it
Oh
was
my God.
still rapidly increasing.
Right.
Oh my
So
God.
I don't know exactly what we can expect. Some people have said M1 money supply
Weird
doesn't.
that it didn't reverse course from 2016 to 2020, don't you think?
And also, like,
Weird.
Donald Trump was notorious for taking credit for the stock market. Like that was one of the things that Trump did, incorrectly. There's a reason other presidents usually don't do that, because it's ridiculous. Like to one day be like, well, yes, glory be to me for making the stonks go up, and then the next day it's like, well, it's one of you, someone else has disturbed the great stonks,
But I think you print all this money, then you get Joe Biden coming out saying everyone gets a raise to $15 an hour, and then there's enough money in circulation to balance out that wage increase, while not giving anyone an increase in buying power.
Yeah, the argument is that you would increase the GDP to debt ratio, which is what happened after World War II. They printed a ton of money at World War II, and then instead of paying back the debt, they just grew the GDP, the gross domestic product, so rapidly that the debt became negligible, and they never ended up paying.
If you look at that period, like right after World War II, America's economy was in the fucking toilet. Let me tell you, that was the worst time for the American economy. It was right after World War II.
Mm-hmm. Yep, most definitely. Not before.
No. was after, I'm pretty sure. It's been a while since history class.
But that's a healthy use of debt. If you can borrow money to grow your business, your enterprise, or whatever in such a way that it dwarfs the size of the debt, that's actually a healthy way.
And I've seen economists make the argument that that's what's going to happen now, but it doesn't seem like our GDP is going to be able to expand that quickly, and that we don't have the industry that we had in 1945.
How? With all the lockdowns and all the factories in China, how?
And
asset price inflation.
But that's why there are concerns about deflation. If people don't work, they don't have money, period, and they'll do anything, and they'll get desperate. And it can be like, whereas a normal person might be a middle manager at a paper company or a cracker factory, and they make, $65,000
You're describing poverty and crime.
You take away that job,
correlation.
their savings is drying up, and then you come to them and say, "I'll give you $1 to shine my shoe." They'll be like, "Thank you, sir."
Now exploitation.
That's how you knock people down.
Everything is
None of that was
more and more digital,
deflation.
so the likelihood of that happening
That's not what the point, yeah.
in my
not one
opinion.
of those.
But also, on the other hand, we are going through a national coin shortage.
Yeah, we.
So, and then there is a huge kind of larger kind of psychological push to make, regular fiat notes something dirty, something that transmits diseases, something that we should stay away from. This push has been kind of happening for a while. It's kind of been put in overdrive with COVID. So there's a big push to promote a cashless society, which is another big agenda which could manipulate and control people.
I just
effectively.
love
That's what
how
I've been
he's
saying
doing all
about
this talking
Bitcoin
in
for
front of a
long
neo-Nazis
time.
cartoon.
That's why I'm surprised I didn't buy Bitcoin sooner. Because even when Bitcoin was at like $50, I was telling
They're
people that it was
complaining
the
about a
perfect-
cashless society, and I thought to
now
myself,
cryptocurrency.
wouldn't it be so funny? Wouldn't it be so funny if in the middle of this rant about a cashless society, we started talking about Bitcoin,
Cryptocurrencies.
purely digital currency?
Yeah, because it has the word in
cannot
it.
be converted
They both have the word
into
coin, so they're correlated. It's in the name. Come on.
It's like you don't even have to take two videos and juxtapose them.
I know.
They will highlight their own inconsistencies in media res.
You were right about just free association of words, eh? Just the word
Yeah.
coin has been said out loud, so now I can associate that with another word that has the word coin in it. So we've done a thing. This is conversation, right? This is how human beings talk to each other.
Can I just go off on Bitcoin for a second?
Yeah.
Can I just
Please.
mention Bitcoin is one of the most disastrous things to ever happen to the human race. Because fucking the amount of
Energy.
energy that goes into producing Bitcoins, not to mention the fact that they're pretty much designed to blow the shit out of graphics cards and processors and shit that just gets thrown into landfills at a time when this is at such a premium, all these rare earth minerals that slaves in the third world are digging up in horrible mines, and we're facing this climate crisis. And what we decide to do with these precious resources is make invisible money that you can buy child pornography with on the internet. That's what Tim Pool is talking about, that he wished he had invested in.
Yeah. I think the majority of it is done in China too. Their arch nemesis. They're the majority of money.
It's energy piracy, right? They just they have little shacks near grids where they just siphon electricity off of grid, because Bitcoins cost more money to produce than you get for them. So to make money on Bitcoin, you have to steal the electricity.
I think in theory the idea behind the technology is cool. When someone finally properly explained blockchain to me, I was like, oh, that is neat. And I wouldn't have thought that would be a way about going about how to transfer files or information, but it is secure in an insecure world. And then and in order to do that, you have to solve complex mathematical problems only GPUs can solve, and it's such a process intensive thing that yes, they run the GPUs into the ground trying to solve these things to be able to make it work. So but crypto
currency for national elites who want to be able to track every exchange of currency around the world. It's a better technology, it's trackable, and you can secretly seize control very, very easily. It's called the 51% attack. And of course, the United States has enough money to do it. I should have bought right then, because it's kind of obvious. There was so much in the conspiracy world about a one world currency. I remember back in the 2000s, people were talking about the Amero. Do you remember that, Luke?
Yes,
The
yes, the
Amero-
North American.
Amero.
I actually talked to the Mexican president about that, and
Really?
he was Vicente Fox, and he was
Yeah.
openly pushing for that.
Wow.
Now and I interviewed him after he was president. Now he's pushing for drug legalization. Very interesting guy, but Vicente
cool.
Fox was like, yes, we need a North American
What's
union. We
happening?
need one
I have
currency between
no
Canada, Mexico,
idea.
and the United States. Of course, a lot of the
Like,
Democrats
again,
promoted this.
the name of this video is Leftist Magazine releases cover of Jesus Joe Biden. That was the title of the video. Like I have like this happens every time. We shouldn't be that surprised. Every time we start something off
I mean,
about
I'm not surprised they've gone off on a wild tangent, but I'm a little surprised that the wild tangent is that some bizarre conspiracy that the United States is going to buy 51% of Bitcoin so that they can institute a one world government. Like,
it's called the 51% attack. Yeah.
yeah, it's called, yeah.
Yeah, it's common knowledge. Yeah.
Larger idea because they also promoted the Trans-Pacific Partnership. They also promoted NAFTA. All of these larger deals, which of course help out multinational corporations and screw over the blue collar worker. So imagine if Mexico was tied in with the United States and Canada economically, what kind of larger exploitation would actually happen by the big multinational powers?
They
does that
like
mean?
being able
They
to hire
are.
people in
Yeah.
jurisdictions that don't have human
I
rights
have
laws.
no idea.
I remember when I first visited Canada and I was talking to a friend of mine. I think it's like 16 years ago or so. Wasn't it like for every $1 US you got 7 Canadian? Like the exchange rate was pretty wild. And so I was talking to a friend of mine who said that they loved it.
Yeah,
Because
that's what it is.
Americans would jump the border and then go party and just spend money like crazy. And
It's
it was great.
7
They paid
to
their
1.
rent very easily.
Oh, God, that
it was
is-
harder to buy international
That's not how
products,
that works.
but their base goods, their
That's
food,
not how that
their
works.
shelter was very easily covered by Americans who would come and spend. Then when everything started to normalize, that stopped happening. And it became harder for a lot of people in the service industry to make good money because they didn't have the wealthy Americans coming and spending all that cash. And this was part of a conversation about economic normalization I was having with a friend. So when it comes to, and we've seen things like this in Europe,
Economic
when it comes to
normalization.
trying to make everybody on the same standard, it's very, very difficult to do if it's done with a finger snap government proposal and they do it overnight. But that's why Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is so interesting. With this constant escalation of the currency that's driving up and up and up, it's getting everyone to be like, I want to do it. It's building confidence in it as a store of value. So people are buying in, they're buying other crypto, and it is creating a one world cashless society. We're on that path through cryptocurrency.
There it is.
Is that a good thing?
There it is.
It could be used either
There it
way. We've seen a lot of foreign
Jacobin
governments
cover
get into the
to
Bitcoin
one
game,
world
whether it's China
crypto
or
order.
even more recently Pakistan, deciding that they're going to be officially mining with Pakistani government money. So it could go in a way where it's used as the kind of one world currency that's a cashless grid, total control, lack of privacy coin initiative, or it could be used on the other hand to promote privacy with privacy coins like Monero that are out there, Zcash, that do try to hide transactions so people could still keep their privacy, which I think is important. It's a double-edged sword. It's just like the internet, and it all depends on the user base. What do you do with it? What do you incentivize? If you incentivize, corporatist, globalist coins that work with the big banks, well, obviously those will
Corporatist,
prosper.
globalist
If you
coins,
incentivize
one world
privacy coins
order.
that prioritize
Deep state.
What are you gonna do with your money that you can't put in the bank? What are you gonna do with it?
There's, by the way, I don't know if you've been picking up on them, but there's been so much like one world order, deep state, all this stuff, like just international bankers. Thank you. Yeah, that too. Globalists. Can't forget. Globalists.
You can really hear the triple parentheses when he says it. Yeah.
Your liberty, well, of course, those will prosper. So right now we're in the deciding phase of this larger cryptocurrency revolution that's unfolding right now that is still yet to be determined if it's going to be really good or really bad for personal freedoms.
Look at social media networks. It was really good for a while and then started to get really, really bad. And then the government realized, or I should say political establishment realized, oh no, we've lost control by giving the plebs the ability to communicate with each other. Quick, take it back.
Yep.
Yeah, but we wouldn't be here if it wasn't for that little opening. There was a little opening, right?
Wait,
and
they're mad at the government for that? I thought they were mad at big tech. I thought it was that big tech was the one censoring us, not the government. The government hasn't done anything in terms of like censoring the big tech. That's the whole thing, because they're private companies, and that would be a socialism or a communism.
That's a good point.
Yeah.
That's a good point. And I think what's even better about that is this guy, just with no self-awareness, just said, yeah, but if it hadn't been like that, we wouldn't have jobs. Like, what the only reason we have jobs is going silencing. 47,000 people are watching your stream right now. Like, you're not being silenced.
Huge mistake.
And that opening has allowed me to have a job, independent
there it
media
is.
organization, allowed you to have a job, allowed other people to have a voice. I don't know, Jack, about your personal kind of history, but
It's grip
there was a
strength.
moment where everything it was like the Wild West. It was amazing. It was beautiful. Anything you saw was organic. It was real. It was genuine. It wasn't corporate. It wasn't fake. It wasn't talking points. It wasn't regurgitation of
internet are
Disney
you talking about?
bull crap
The child
shoved in
porn
your face.
internet. When
Thanks for
it was
checking
the
out
Wild
this
West.
clip from the Timcast IRL podcast.
Where
So when was social media free of corporations? I must have missed that point.
it was beautiful. It was unadulterated. It was like he's speaking about it like they used to speak, like colonizers spoke about the new world. He was like, it was clean, untouched, and pure.
Yeah, the prelapsarian internet.
I mean, maybe he was talking about 1.0 before 2.0. Like, I know there's been different grand iterations of the internet. 2.0 being the big one where we started blogging and having that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but I remember when 1.0, it was not like free of corporate influence. Like
Oh
that
God,
is
no.
just
No, did you have a single website until GeoCities came along? I think that was the first time I ever managed to get my
I
hands
did
there.
because my school taught us how to make websites, so we had some hosted on there.
Oh, that's dope. It's still hosted?
No, sadly, I wish.
Oh, okay. I was like, is that a
Cool
Matt Lord?
Pokemon website I made in the 8th grade.
Is that what you made it about? That was my next question.
Of course it was.
Yeah. You
Just
guys are
where I
so
can host
old. Yeah,
all
we're
my
old.
Screenshots and GIFs and cheat codes for Pokemon Yellow.
People in chat are roasting us for being old right now, and I was like, yeah, I'm old. I was around before in the before times. Me and Matt come from a different age where the internet didn't even exist, and you had to call people on phones that were attached to the wall. You see, they were plugged into the wall at all times.
My lifetime spans 2 separate millenniums, so
2 separate millenniums.
that's how old I am. 2 separate millenniums.
If you want us to advertise your channel or work, please go to weareserfs.com and email us a 20 to 30 second ad, and we'll take it on to the end of one of our videos to help promote your leftist channel or progressive something. Whatever you do.
To our gods, I'm Raph, Xander Corvus, and Schlatsky. We shall build golden idols in your honor. To our monarch, Tom Spiker, you have our undying fealty. To our lords, Jeffrey Lamb, Trevor R., Hans Josephine, C. Bartlett, Jimothy K. Meeple Beeps Jr., Bisexual Black Gamer, and Trofox, we shall carry your banners onto the battlefield. To our Knights of the Round Table, Josh Mickelson, Dylan Byte, Zach Christensen, Todd Buckingham, Todd Lajeunesse, Political Puppy, Jimmy Bignuts, Andreas Chitoro, Good Poon Hates Cops, That's Solid Poon Then, Dr. Zayas, Yoppie, Violent Orchard, Sophie Baby, Thomas Barrington, J. Fraser Cartwright, Goofalankius, Melissa Murphy, Nicholas Marks, Alexander Thaler, Ali Rada Jafer, Alex Gauvin, Radical Maniac, The Great Pudini, and Callie Kotka. We salute you.